The planet Vera, 9, had once possessed oceans. Nobody alive remembered them now. What remained was ash. Endless volcanic plains stretched beneath a wounded red sky, while colossal extraction towers drilled directly into the planet's molten core. Every few minutes, the ground trembled as another continent-sized furnace engine harvested thermal matter for the celestial dominion's artificial suns. From orbit, the world looked diseased, its surface cracked open with glowing orange veins like a dying animal struggling to breathe. Even leaned against the cockpit window of the salvage crawler and chewed a stale protein stick with visible disappointment. This tastes like burned socks. Across from him, the navigation unit responded immediately. Correction. Burned socks contain 14% more sodium. Thank you, machine. That somehow made it worse. The crawler rattled violently while descending into one of the planet's abandoned mining fractures. Ancient tunnels disappeared for kilometers beneath the crust, places even corporate scavengers avoided now. Too many disappearances, too many strange signals. Which naturally meant there was money involved. The crew consisted of exactly the sort of people terrible decisions attracted: a silent weapons smuggler with chrome fingertips, two exhausted miners arguing about card debt, a medic who smelled constantly of engine coolant, and even whose primary qualifications included surviving disasters he absolutely should not have survived. The crawler light swept across enormous black walls covered in melted alien markings. The medic frowned. Those symbols weren't here last cycle. One miner shrugged. Maybe the walls got artistic. No, the medic whispered. They're moving. Everyone went quiet. The markings slowly shifted across the stone like living veins beneath skin. Ivan immediately pressed the emergency snack compartment open. The smuggler stared at him. Why are you eating right now? If we're about to die, I'd rather die chewing. The crawler descended deeper. Heat levels climbed beyond safe tolerance. Metal groaned around them. Then the scanners began screaming. Unknown energy signature detected. Unknown biological signal detected. Unknown stellar activity detected. Ivan blinked. Why does that last one sound bad? Because, the navigation unit answered, we are underground. The tunnel suddenly opened into something impossible. A gigantic hollow chamber stretched beneath the planet's crust, so massive the crawler looked microscopic inside it. Suspended in the darkness was a rotating storm of living fire thousands of meters wide. Crimson plasma spiraled silently through the air, folding into itself like a burning galaxy trapped beneath the world. Nobody spoke. The firestorm was breathing. Not metaphorically. The flames expanded and contracted slowly, like lungs. The miners backed away first. No, one whispered. No, no, no. That thing is alive. Then the voices began. Soft whispers echoed through the chamber from nowhere at all. Not one voice. Millions. Some cried, some laughed, some screamed in languages none of them understood. Even smile disappeared. The storm reacted to them. The flames brightened violently, and suddenly every screen inside the crawler filled with static. Ancient symbols flooded the monitors. Star maps, dead galaxies. Unfamiliar constellations rotating across the displays fast enough to make the human eye ache. Then the fire opened. A shape emerged slowly from the center of the living inferno. A woman. She stepped barefoot onto the black volcanic stone, while flames curled around her body without consuming it. Pale metallic skin shimmered beneath flowing rivers of crimson light. Thin glowing fractures spread across her arms like cracks in cooling glass. Her hair drifted weightlessly around her, changing color between silver and deep red depending on the movement of the fire. But her eyes stopped them cold. There were stars inside them. Actual moving stars. Tiny constellations rotated slowly where human pupils should have been. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The woman looked around in confusion, as though waking from a nightmare older than history itself. Then she spoke softly. Why is the universe screaming? The chamber trembled. Above them, somewhere far beyond the crust of Vera, 9, the sky split apart. Massive crimson symbols ignited across the atmosphere of the planet, stretching from horizon to horizon like wounds carved into reality itself. Every communication channel in the crawler activated simultaneously. Emergency broadcasts flooded the speakers. Unknown phenomenon detected across multiple sectors. Mass hallucinations reported. Civilian populations hearing unidentified voices from stars. Imperial quarantine protocols initiated. The messages abruptly distorted into screaming static. The woman suddenly looked directly at Ivan. He froze. She tilted her head slightly, studying him with strange curiosity. Then, without warning, every metal object inside the crawler began floating. Weapons, tools, loose screws. Even Ivan's half-eaten protein stick drifted slowly into the air. He stared at it in horror. That, he said carefully, was my last snack. Sirens screamed across the mining chamber as the floating metal objects began spinning faster around the mysterious woman. The crawler's gravity systems failed completely. One of the miners slammed against the ceiling with a terrified yell while dozens of loose tools rotated through the air like a swarm of confused mechanical insects. Ivan caught his drifting protein stick before it escaped entirely. Good, he muttered. At least someone here still believes in loyalty. The woman looked frightened now, not dangerous, frightened. The glowing fractures beneath her skin pulsed brighter with every alarm echoing through the chamber. The whispers surrounding the firestorm grew louder, overlapping endlessly like dead civilizations speaking all at once. The medic grabbed the control panel. We need to leave, right now. Wonderful idea, Ivan replied. Tiny problem, gravity has apparently resigned. Above them, the cavern trembled violently. Chunks of burning rock crashed into the abyss below while the entire underground chamber groaned like something ancient had awakened beneath the planet. Then, every screen aboard the crawler switched to the same image. A crimson eye. Not a recording. Not a symbol. An actual eye staring directly at them from the monitor. The navigation unit spoke in a distorted voice. Imperial quarantine fleet has entered orbit. Everyone froze. How many ships? Asked the smuggler quietly. The navigation unit paused. Uncomfortable amount. Outside the crawler, the firestorm suddenly contracted inward. The massive living flames collapsed into themselves until only silence remained inside the chamber. The woman stood alone now, in darkness, staring upward as though hearing something none of them could understand. Then she whispered, They found me. At that exact moment, the ceiling exploded. A massive drilling cannon tore through the rock above them as armored Imperial descent troops flooded into the cavern on magnetic cables. Their black combat suits glowed with golden furnace emblems while plasma rifles locked onto the woman instantly. One soldier shouted through external speakers. By order of the Celestial Dominion, all unidentified entities will submit for containment. Ivan slowly raised a hand. Question. No response. Hypothetically speaking, what if we politely decline? The soldiers immediately aimed at him too. Fair enough, he sighed. The woman stepped backward. The glowing symbols on her skin began rotating faster. The whispers returned. This time the crew could understand them. Burning skies. Dead suns. The end is waking. One miner started crying instantly. I don't like cosmic sentences, he whispered. Cosmic sentences are never good. An Imperial commander descended into the chamber, wearing polished white armor, untouched by ash or dust. Unlike the others, he stared at the woman with genuine fear. The Flame Empress, he said quietly. The woman frowned slightly. I don't remember that name. You were not meant to return. Something changed in the air. Heat flooded the chamber so fast the crawler windows cracked. The commander slowly backed away. Then the woman looked upward again. For a brief second, stars appeared inside the cavern ceiling itself. Not projections, actual stars. Entire constellations flickered across the stone overhead as reality bent around her. The Imperial soldiers panicked. Open fire! Plasma bolts erupted through the darkness. The woman instinctively raised her hand. Everything stopped. The glowing plasma rounds froze motionless in the air, inches from her body. The entire chamber became silent, except for the low humming sound now vibrating through the planet itself. Ivan blinked twice. Okay, he said softly. That's new. The woman stared at the frozen weapons in confusion, as though she herself did not understand what she had done. Then, all the plasma bolts slowly turned backward. Every Imperial soldier suddenly screamed. The shots reversed direction simultaneously and exploded against the cavern walls behind them, sending troops diving for cover. Chaos erupted. The smuggler grabbed the crawler controls. We're leaving! That vehicle barely flies. Then today will be exciting. The crawler engines roared alive as everyone stumbled aboard. The woman hesitated only briefly before following them inside. The moment she crossed the doorway, every dead system aboard the ship restarted instantly. Lights activated. Engines stabilized. Even the coffee machine suddenly began functioning again after being broken for 6 months. The medic stared at it in disbelief. What? Ivan pointed dramatically toward the woman. She fixed Greg. Why is the coffee machine named Greg? Because he's been with us through difficult times. Behind them, Imperial troops continued flooding into the chamber, while emergency sirens echoed planet-wide. The crawler launched upward violently through collapsing tunnels as explosions ripped through the volcanic rock behind them. Dust storms swallowed the passageways while molten lava burst from cracked walls like glowing rivers. The woman sat silently near the rear hatch, staring at her own hands. Tiny flames moved beneath her skin, not burning her, living inside her. Ivan approached carefully. So, he said nervously, bad news is the galaxy apparently wants to kill you. She slowly looked up at him. And the good news? He thought for a moment. You fixed Greg. The crawler burst out of the mining fracture just as dawnless ash storms swallowed the surface of Vera 9. Above the planet, the sky had transformed into madness. Massive crimson symbols stretched across the atmosphere from horizon to horizon, glowing between thunderclouds like scars carved into space itself. Entire Imperial warships hovered overhead, while gigantic orbital furnaces burned through the darkness like artificial suns. Every communication frequency was chaos. Emergency prayers, military commands, people screaming about voices inside the stars. The crawler shook violently as it accelerated toward the upper atmosphere. The smuggler slammed both hands against the controls. Engine temperature critical. Can we survive critical? Asked Ivan. No. Wonderful. I enjoy consistency. Behind them, 3 Imperial interceptors detached from the fleet and began pursuit immediately. The navigation unit spoke calmly. Hostile ships approaching. One miner panicked. How close? The machine paused. Emotionally or physically? Nobody answered. The woman sat near the rear hatch in silence while glowing reflections moved slowly across her metallic skin. Since leaving the cavern, the air around her had remained strangely warm, as though invisible fire surrounded her body at all times. Tiny sparks drifted from her fingertips whenever she became nervous. And she was becoming nervous now. The symbols in the sky pulsed brighter. Suddenly, the entire crawler lights dimmed. The whispers returned. Not distant this time. Inside the ship. Everyone heard them clearly. Wake the fire. The stars are dying. She has returned. The medic grabbed his head. Make it stop. Ivan looked around uneasily. I officially miss normal problems. Death, gunfire, food poisoning, simpler times. Then the woman suddenly gasped. Her eyes widened. Outside the cockpit window, the stars themselves began flickering. One by one, entire constellations blinking like failing lights. The navigation unit froze mid-sentence. Warning! A deep vibration rolled through space itself. Far above Vera, 9, one of the artificial suns powering the Imperial fleet suddenly darkened. Every ship in orbit lost power for exactly 3 seconds. 3 seconds was enough. The smuggler grinned. There we go. The crawler shot upward through the disabled blockade, while Imperial ships drifted helplessly around them. Some collided violently in the confusion, others spiraled into the planet's atmosphere trailing fire. The crew erupted in disbelief. We made it? We actually made it? Then the navigation unit continued speaking. Correction. Multiple hostile signatures reacquired. Everyone groaned simultaneously. The interceptors returned online first. Plasma fire ripped past the crawler as alarms screamed again. The woman looked toward the stars with growing horror. I can hear them. Hear who? Asked Even. She swallowed slowly. The dead ones. Silence filled the ship. Then one miner whispered, I hate this conversation. The crawler entered hyperspace moments later. Reality folded violently around them as blue fractures tore across the cockpit windows. Endless streams of distorted starlight twisted through darkness while the engines screamed under unbearable pressure. Normally, hyperspace travel felt smooth. Now it felt sick. The corridors bent slightly when nobody looked directly at them. Strange shadows moved beneath the floor panels. At one point, the medic opened a storage locker and discovered an ocean horizon inside it for 2 full seconds before it vanished again. Nobody mentioned it. That somehow made it worse. Hours later, the crew gathered in the cargo hold around the woman. She had still not given them her name. Mostly because she didn't remember it. Even sat across from her holding 2 cups of machine coffee. Well, he said carefully, you melted soldiers, shut down a star, and broke reality a little. He handed her a cup. That usually means somebody owes me answers. She accepted the drink slowly, studying the steam rising from it like she had forgotten what ordinary things looked like. I remember fire, she whispered. The glowing marks beneath her skin pulsed faintly. I remember cities inside stars. Nobody spoke. I remember people burning without dying. The ship suddenly trembled. Not from engines, from something outside. The smuggler rushed into the cockpit. You all need to see this. Everyone followed. Ahead of them, hyperspace itself had changed. Usually, the dimension appeared as endless blue distortion. Now, massive red symbols floated throughout the void like gigantic burning constellations. The same symbols from Vera, 9. Only larger. Much larger. The woman stepped closer to the glass. Then the symbols moved. Slowly. Deliberately. Like they were alive. One of the miners backed away immediately. Nope. What do you mean nope? Asked Ivan. I mean absolutely nope. Space shouldn't watch people. The symbols suddenly aligned together. A shape formed across the hyperspace corridor. An enormous eye. Everyone froze. The woman staggered backward as pain crossed her face. Then, for the first time since they found her, she screamed. Every light aboard the crawler exploded simultaneously. A shockwave of crimson energy erupted from her body. And somewhere, deep inside hyperspace, something ancient woke up. The scream did not end inside the crawler. It spread across hyperspace itself. Massive crimson fractures exploded through the blue void around them, while entire travel corridors collapsed into burning light. Somewhere far behind the ship, Imperial war fleets vanished instantly as reality folded inward like paper dropped into fire. The crew could only stare. The woman fell to her knees, clutching her head as thousands of voices poured through the ship. Not whispers anymore. Memories. Cities orbiting black suns. Humans made from living fire. Ancient celestial beings, shaping civilizations like fragile experiments. And then, the truth. I remember, she whispered. The glowing marks beneath her skin ignited fully. The crawler engines died. Hyperspace shattered around them. For one impossible moment, the ship floated in complete darkness between galaxies. No stars. No planets. Only silence. Then, something enormous opened its eyes. The thing surrounding them was too large to understand completely. It resembled neither creature nor machine. Entire galaxies rotated slowly beneath its translucent body, like reflections trapped beneath water. Burning rings of cosmic fire circled it endlessly. The crew stopped breathing. Ivan finally spoke first. I would like to formally apologize for every bad decision I've ever made. The ancient entity looked directly at the woman. You return. Her voice trembled. I tried to stop it. You delayed it. Images flooded the darkness around them. Humanity spreading across galaxies. Empires feeding worlds into artificial suns. Machine religions tearing apart dying systems. And beneath it all, a fire growing larger inside every human soul. The entity spoke again. The astral fire is awakening. Suddenly the stars returned. Not distant. Close. Too close. Entire solar systems burned red across the void as crimson symbols spread through galaxies like infections beneath skin. Millions of human voices echoed faintly through space itself. The woman stood slowly. No, she whispered. The entity's gaze deepened. You were created for this purpose. The crew stared at her. Even Ivan looked serious now. You knew? He asked quietly. Fragments of memory moved behind her eyes. I sealed myself away before humanity reached this point, she said. I thought if I disappeared, the fire would sleep forever. But it didn't, said the medic softly. She looked toward the burning galaxies. No, it grew hungry. Suddenly, alarms exploded throughout the crawler. Imperial fleets emerged from fractured hyperspace all around them. Thousands of warships surrounded the void while massive biomechanical cathedrals belonging to the Choir Mechanica descended behind them like steel moons. The galaxy had followed her here. One Imperial transmission flooded every channel. Surrender the Flame Empress. A machine voice interrupted immediately. Human evolution will be assimilated. Ivan sighed deeply. Of course, both psychotic groups arrived together. The smuggler checked weapon systems. We can't fight all of that. No, the woman said calmly. The glowing fire around her intensified. We can't. Outside the ship, entire fleets prepared to fire. Then she smiled for the first time. Not with fear, with understanding. I spent so long running from what I was. The stars inside her eyes began rotating faster. But humanity was never meant to survive as prisoners. The ancient entity watched silently. The woman turned toward the crew. The miner who constantly panicked. The medic. The smuggler. Even people who should have abandoned her long ago. Instead, they stayed. You gave me something the old universe never understood, she said softly. Ivan blinked. Emotional trauma? She laughed quietly. Choice. Then she stepped out of the ship, directly into space. Flames erupted around her body instantly. Gigantic wings of living stellar fire unfolded behind her, stretching across the darkness between fleets. The crimson symbols infecting the galaxies began moving toward her like rivers returning to an ocean. Every warship froze. Every machine fell silent. Human voices echoed across the stars. The woman raised one glowing hand, and the artificial suns began shutting down, one by one, across the empire. Massive furnace worlds darkened. Planet-killing engines died. The machine cathedrals screamed as astral fires spread through their systems like divine infection. Imperial admirals panicked. Civilizations trembled. But the woman did not destroy humanity. She changed it. A pulse of crimson light exploded outward across the universe. Not fire, awakening. Across countless worlds, humans suddenly felt the sleeping energy inside themselves ignite gently for the first time. Not enough to consume them, enough to evolve them. The burning galaxies slowly stabilized. The crimson symbols faded from the skies. The ancient entity surrounding the void finally closed its eyes again. Its purpose complete. Inside the crawler, Greg the coffee machine suddenly exploded. Everyone jumped. Smoke filled the cabin. Even stared at the ruined machine in horror. He died a hero. Hours later, silence returned to the stars. No more screaming voices. No more collapsing suns. Only quiet light drifting peacefully across reborn galaxies. The woman stood alone on the hull of the crawler watching new constellations form where dead systems once burned. Even climbed beside her carefully. So, he said, do cosmic empresses usually save existence and then disappear dramatically? She smiled faintly. Sometimes. You planning to vanish? She looked toward the endless stars. For the first time, they no longer sounded afraid. No, she answered softly. And together, beneath a universe no longer burning from within, they watched the first sunrise humanity had truly earned.